Welcome to Applied Wisdom, Literature for Living Better. Today, we're taking a really interesting deep dive into The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli.
Right.
This was one you sent in, and it seems like many of you, even folks deep into personal growth, are keen to figure out why we sometimes make, well, let's just say, less than ideal decisions without even realizing it.
Absolutely. And this book is great for that.
So our mission today is really to unpack some of those common mental errors Dobelli points out, and more importantly, connect them to things we can actually do in our daily lives. Actionable stuff.
Exactly. Dobelli's book, it's not really abstract advice. It's more like a field guide, to the specific ways our thinking goes wrong.
Yeah.
99 common pitfalls.
99. Wow. So like a toolkit for spotting biases?
Pretty much. Cognitive biases, logical fallacies, mental shortcuts. He names them, explains them simply, helps you see them in action.
Let's start with the core idea then. Dobelli basically says we're systematically irrational, right? Not just randomly messing up, but predictably.
That's the key takeaway. We're prone to these errors. It's how our brains are wired, often to simplify things.
Simplify things, like heuristics, those mental shortcuts.
Exactly. Heuristics are often useful, quick ways to judge a situation. But the problem is, in our complex modern world, these shortcuts, which maybe evolved for survival reasons.
Like hearing a noise and assuming danger.
Right. Quick decisions, but now they can backfire in finance, planning, even relationships. They lead to these cognitive biases.
So biases are like systematic deviations from rational thinking, often subconscious.
Born from those simplifying heuristics. Dobelli's goal isn't to make us perfectly rational. That's probably impossible.
Right.
But it's about recognizing these patterns. Naming them, like you said, it gives you power over them, or at least awareness.
And the book's structure helps there. Short chapters, one bias each.
Yeah, very digestible. You can pick one, think about it, see where it pops up in your day.
Let's dig into some specifics then. Which ones really stand out as useful for someone focused on personal growth? Maybe survivorship bias. That seems relevant.
Oh, definitely. Survivorship bias is, well, it's when we massively overestimate our chances of success because we only look at the survivors, the winner.
We totally ignore the failures.
Exactly. Think about successful entrepreneurs. We hear their stories constantly.
Right, the Zuckerbergs, the Musks.
And we think, okay, hard work, good idea, that's the formula. But we don't see the thousands of startups that had smart people, worked hard, and still failed.
So the impact is we get overly optimistic, misjudge the risks.
Totally. We don't see the full picture, just the highlight reel.
So the actionable insight, how do we fight that?
Actively seek out the failures. When you read about a success, ask, what about the ones who didn't make it? What went wrong for them? Look for the graveyard data, not just the trophies.
Look for the graveyard data. I like that. Okay, another big one, sunk cost fallacy. I think we've all been there.
Oh, absolutely. This is huge. It's when you keep pouring resources, time, money, effort into something just because you've already invested so much.
Even when it's clearly not working out anymore.
Precisely. Like staying in a bad relationship because you've been together for years, or finishing a terrible movie because you already paid for the ticket.
Or maybe for our listeners, sticking with a project or a course that isn't delivering just because you've put weeks into it.
Exactly. You feel like you can't waste the past investment. But Dobelli says that investment is gone. It's sunk.
Right. It shouldn't influence the future decision.
Correct. Future decisions should only be based on future costs and benefits.
So the practical takeaway is?
Ask yourself this question. Knowing what I know now, if I were starting from scratch today, would I still make this investment or start this project?
Ooh, that's a sharp question.
If the answer is no, then the past investment is irrelevant. Cut your losses. It's hard emotionally, but logically, it's the way.
Okay, that's powerful. Let's talk confirmation bias. This feels incredibly relevant today with information overload.
It really is. Confirmation bias is our tendency to search for, interpret, and remember information in a way that confirms what we already believe.
So we filter everything through our existing opinions.
Pretty much. And we tend to ignore or quickly dismiss anything that contradicts our beliefs.
Only reading news sources that align with our political views.
That's a classic example. Or, in personal growth, maybe only seeking out advice that validates the approach you're already taking, and ignoring critics or alternative methods.
And the impact. It just reinforces our prejudices, stops us from learning, makes us more polarized.
Definitely. It keeps us in our own little echo chambers.
So the action step here, how do we break out?
You have to actively seek out disagreement. Make a conscious effort to read or listen to perspectives that challenge your own, especially if it's uncomfortable. Follow people you disagree with, read articles from the other side. Try to genuinely understand their arguments, not just poke holes in them.
That takes discipline. Okay, what about the availability heuristic?
Right, the availability heuristic. This is where we overestimate the importance or likelihood of things that just spring to mind more easily.
Things that are recent or dramatic or maybe emotionally charged.
Exactly. Like fearing plane crashes way more than car accidents.
Because plane crashes get huge media coverage, they're very vivid, even though statistically, driving is far riskier.
Precisely. The availability of the dramatic event in our memory distorts our perception of the actual risk. We rely on anecdotes or vivid examples instead of data.
Yeah. So the impact is skewed risk assessment, making decisions based on what's memorable rather than what's probable, and the actionable insight.
When you're judging risk or probability, force yourself to look beyond the easy examples. Ask for the data, the statistics. Don't just trust what pops into your head first.
Okay, good one. Let's touch on hindsight bias quickly. The I knew it all along effect.
Yes, hindsight bias. After an event happens, we tend to look back and believe it was way more predictable than it actually was at the time.
After a stock market crash, everyone says, oh, the signs were obvious.
Exactly. But before it happened, it wasn't nearly so clear. This bias makes us feel smarter than we were.
And the danger is it prevents us from actually learning from mistakes, right? If we think we knew it all along, we don't analyze what we really thought back then.
Correct. It leads to overconfidence about our ability to predict the future.
So the action, how do we counter this?
When reflecting on a past event, try really hard to remember what you actually thought and knew before the outcome was known. Maybe even keep a decision journal. Write down your reasoning before things happen. That helps calibrate your sense of predictability later.
A decision journal. That's interesting. Okay, one more quick one. Anchoring.
Anchoring. This is where we rely too heavily on the very first piece of information offered, the anchor, when making decisions.
Like the initial asking price in a negotiation. It kind of sets the range.
Exactly. That first number, even if it's arbitrary, heavily influences where the final price lands. Or the first estimate you hear for a project's timeline can anchor your expectations.
Impact. Poor estimates, getting skewed in negotiations.
Right. We don't adjust enough from that initial anchor.
Actionable insight.
Be aware of the first number or piece of information you encounter. Question it. Actively seek out other data points before making your judgment. Don't let that first anchor drag your thinking too far.
So we've covered a few key biases. Dobelli's overall solution isn't some magic technique to eliminate them, though, is it?
No, not really. He's quite realistic. The primary strategy is simply awareness, recognizing these patterns in yourself and in others.
Like having a mental checklist.
Kind of. It requires conscious effort. To question your assumptions, seek out that disconfirming evidence we talked about, consider alternatives, use data when you can.
And accepting that perfect rationality isn't the goal. It's more about being less irrational.
Exactly. Striving for clearer thinking, not perfect thinking. It's about intellectual humility.
So for listeners on their personal growth journey, what are the big takeaways here?
Well, first, understand that your irrationality isn't random. It's systematic. Knowing the systems, these biases, empowers you.
Awareness is step one, that mental checklist idea.
Right. Second, question your intuition, especially for big decisions. Your gut feeling might be influenced by one of these biases.
Don't just trust the gut implicitly.
Exactly. Third, cultivate humility about your own judgment. You're not immune. None of us are.
Good reminder.
And finally, focus on evaluating your decision-making process, not just the outcome. Did you consider biases? Did you seek other views? That's where the learning happens, even if an outcome wasn't great.
That makes a lot of sense. Evaluating the process itself. Well, hopefully this deep dive into some key ideas from The Art of Thinking Clearly has given you some valuable insights into those hidden ways our minds can sometimes lead us astray, even when we're trying our best to grow.
Becoming aware of these biases is, I think, a huge step towards clearer thinking and making better choices.
So maybe think about one or two of these biases we discussed, perhaps sunk cost or confirmation bias. Actively try to spot them in your own thinking this week. What stands out to you now? How might this awareness actually change how you approach things?
That's a great exercise. Just noticing them is powerful.
Thank you for joining us for this discussion on applied wisdom. Stay tuned for the next one. And if exploring the art of thinking clearly helped you, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel.